you tell I'm in denial?
You can't stay at the top forever.
I was also very surprised when I looked at my phone and saw Joe Girardi dismissed.
Well, I think mine were with common sense.
I think now belongs in the all-time greats top 10.
Boston, I really think only got to this point because of a guy named Chris Middleton being out for the Bucks.
That power play just was unbearable. It was humming.
Man, am I happy. I knew that this was going to happen. I knew he was going to come back.
When I think of New York Yankees now is Judge, probably people in the past when Jeter was coming up.
I would be shocked. A little bit hurt.
Hey, this is Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, TexasFootball.com, and Valley Sports Southwest. You are listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL, Opinions of the Week. I'm Kevin, and I'm joined by the man who may be the punter or kicker or gunner for special teams of the Outsiders Opinions football squad, Austin.
Yeah, Kevin, there's a lot of special team positions, and I have at least one from each. So those positions would be, you have obviously kickers and punters, and then you have punt returners, you have kick returners, and then you have special teamers. So of all those positions, and long snappers as well. So what is that? 6 positions, 7 positions? I tried to divvy it up between as equally as possible.
So kickers count.
That's a special teamer, yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad. Cool. I thought kickers was going to be a separate list, but I can just add a few kickers really quick because I struggled with this list.
I'll just give you all a lesson in Pro Football Reference. When you go to Pro Football Reference, you can see snap counts, offense, defense, and special team. So when I said special teamers, I meant everybody. Because technically, if I was just going to do kickers, I wouldn't include punters either, right? So
yeah,
but punters are here.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So
kickers,
punters. And
I also should have had this conversation with you before we started recording. That's
it's fine. I thought it was clear. Obviously, there was a misinterpretation.
No, you're good. You're good. That actually makes me feel better because I was like, man, this is tough for me. So let's get into it though.
I'll start to make it easier on
you.
You can have some time to adjust your list as necessary. But my number 10 is a rookie from last year. He will be in his second season with the Chargers, and it's Darius Davis. Darius Davis was a second-team All-Pro punt returner last year. He was second in the league in punt return yards while having the most yards per punt return, and also had the most punt return touchdowns with only one. He had a great year last year. All-purpose yards, he almost had 1,000. I think next year he'll be even better. He was a great returner in college, and that's why he was drafted. And I think he'll be even better next year, especially with the new rules that they have regarding returning. So they have new returning rules, and because of that, I feel like a lot of these players have a chance to step up into the spotlight.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to add too. Of this list was tough for me as well because special teams has kind of lost its shine. Given some of the before the new rules, it was kind of like, okay, fair catch. There was no really dynamic returns. It was very rare that a kick got returned. I know it happened in the Miami Jets Black Friday game. However, to me, that special teams doesn't really matter at this point, but with the new rules, which I forgot about, maybe we see special teams receive have a bigger impact on the game, because we used to talk about special teams was huge. You would bring up, was it the 2007 Chargers?
I think it was the 2007 Chargers are really good. I think it was the 2010 Chargers.
2010 Chargers, who had the best offense
and the best defense.
Best defense. Worst special teams. They missed the playoffs entirely, correct?
That is true, yes.
Of course, like we talk about kickers and punters, that being good, but like punt returners doesn't really get a lot of love. And like they haven't really done much, but I'm excited to see what happens. So that is kind of my talk. I'll go into my 10. I have Neville Hewitt. I looked at one of the top tacklers in special teams, and he was up there. I believe he is with he is the linebacker for the Houston Texans. So he was huge on their special teams.
Yeah, I mean, he did play 84% of special teams possessions last year, so that's a great guy to have. Who's your 9?
My 9 is also CJ Goodwin. I couldn't find him a lot on the stats, but he's a guy still with the Cowboys. He's a guy where I'm like, okay, he is primarily there for special teams, and he does a really good job on that. So to me, he deserved to be on this spot.
Like I said, I'm including all positions here. I wanted to get at least one of each of the 6 positions. And this is where we get our only long snapper. I wanted to have one in here. His name is Andrew DePaula. He's going to be 37 this year. But the past 2 years, Kevin, he was a Pro Bowler both years and was All-Pro first team in 2022 and second team this past year. So he's kind of hitting his stride. He's been very good for Minnesota over the past 2 years, and I think that continues. I am excited to see how he does. It's not all that common that you get a long snapper that is consistently an All-Pro, but it seems like Andrew DePaula is one of the best, and I think he is the best this year.
Yeah, special or long snappers is tough for me because I just don't know enough about the position, but they are important. So they're not on my list. But I'll go into my 8. And that is Jalen Reeves, Mabin. He is with the I don't think he made the All-Pro list.
He was All-Pro second team guy.
Okay, he was second team. Okay, I couldn't remember. I think Neville Hewitt didn't make second team or first team, but I remember Mabin was on there, and he was on the second team. So that was a big reason, and he was also in the top 3 tackles for special teams.
Yeah, he did not make my list. It seems like we're going to have very different lists.
Yes.
My number 8 is a guy that did not make anything this year, but that's probably because he was partially injured. But he did just get signed to the Steelers to a multi-year deal, and I think that's because of the new kickoff rules. Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson is the greatest kick returner of all time, Kevin. He has the most kick return touchdowns ever, and there's a serious chance, even though he'll be 33 this year, or is 33 right now and will be 33 for the entirety of the season, that he gets more. These new rules will definitely affect everything, and that's why I have him here. If they were the same old rules as last year, he would not make my list, but I do think he will be a top 10 special teamer this year.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher, but we agree on him. Cordell Patterson is the guy rare.
I would have had him higher, Kevin, if he didn't have a lackluster season last year. He only had 153 kick return yards, and while he has the highest, I think, yards per return of all time, last year he only had a 21.9 yards per return, but that should definitely change this upcoming year. So I played a little bit safe, but he is one of my favorite players in the league, especially because he is so great at returning, and I think this year could be great. I'll go into my number 7. My number 7 is JT Gray. He's my only true special teamer, so just not a returner or anything. He's just a special teamer, and he has made a All-Pro second team in 2019, All-Pro first team in 2021, and Pro Bowl in 2021. And this past year, he was very close to making it again. He's just consistent, and I love to see consistent guys on special teams.
Yeah, he did not make my list, but that is a good one. My 7 is Miles Kilbrew, who's a special teamer, and he was first team All-Pro with Pittsburgh. So that is why when I looked at All-Pros, I was like, I got to have some All-Pros on here, and he is on this list.
Okay, who's your 6?
My 6 is, it looks like thinking about kickers. I didn't want to have too many teams, but with Pittsburgh, I have that too many same guys. I have Brandon Aubrey as the kicker. I know I like to hit on the Cowboys, but Aubrey seemed to participate well. He didn't miss a few kicks, but given he was an All-Pro and he was first in points this year in kicking stats, based on Fox Sports, he has the most points, which is kind of shocking to me. But to me, he deserves a shout out and a top 10 special teamer.
Yeah, Brandon Aubrey is on my list, and he'll be a little bit higher. But I do have 2 Cowboys on this list. We'll start with this one at number 6, Brian Anger. He made a Pro Bowl last year, All-Pro second team. Over the last 3 years, he's made 2 All-Pro second teams and 2 Pro Bowls. A very good punter, and I do think punting is extremely underrated, extremely important, and it can help you win games. Again, a problem with the 2010 Chargers was their punting, was their kicking, was everything in special teams, and punting can really flip the field. It can allow your offense some comfort if they know that their guy will be able to punt it from any situation, and they are definitely big impacts in the game.
Yeah, that's a really good one. My 5 is actually a punter, and it is AJ Cole with the Raiders. Looking at Cole this season, and the Raiders did do a lot of punting. He had the farthest boot of the season in Week 9, and he had own the highest percentage of punts to land outside the numbers, 69.3%. Punting is a big field, changing the field, especially if you're deep back. So punting is important. Same with kicking. It's just the kick returners and punt returners, to me, that has been lessened over the years. But we'll see what happens this upcoming year.
I still think punting is extremely important because it is.
It's punting. My bad. Punt returners and kick returners, not as much.
I can agree with that. I think this year kick returners get a big jump up in importance, but yeah, punt returners, I still think it hurts, and that's why my main punt returner that I had on the list is my only punt returner I had on the list is number 10. It's even though I think he is really good, he had 1 touchdown during the year and played well. He again led the NFL in yards per return for punt returners. It's still tough to really make that big impact. Who's your 5?
So 5 is AJ Cole for me.
Okay. My 5 is the best kick returner in the NFL. In my opinion, it's not very close. I don't know how he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet. Kevin, the last 2 years, he hasn't made a Pro Bowl, even though over the last 2 years, he has a combined 20 approximate value. So approximate value is kind of a determinant of how good a player is, and an approximate value that is that high for a guy in his position is remarkable. While I talk about him for a bit, I'll try to look up another player to compare, because it is kind of crazy that he's made an All-Pro first team, Kevin, the last 2 years, and hasn't made a Pro Bowl.
Okay.
So the Associated Press thinks he's the best kick returner in the league the past 2 years, All-Pro first team, but he hasn't made a Pro Bowl. It's crazier, Kevin, when you consider that this past year he led the NFL in returns, return yards, and yards per return. Now he didn't have any touchdowns, but when you go returns, yards per return, and yards, he's the highest. The year before that, he had the most returns, the most return yards, over 1,000 just kick return yards. He had 1 touchdown and had the longest return of the year. I don't know how he doesn't get more respect, and it's Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon for the Packers started to play a lot of defensive snaps last year for the first time in his career. He had never played more than 28%, but this past year he played 73%. So he's a big part of our team. And again, he is the best kick returner in the league. And I don't think it's particularly close, because there's a lot of players that I don't think get enough praise, but a guy like him that are truly great, it annoys me a little bit. But for a comparison, this past year, or the year that Tony Pollard made the Pro Bowl, Kevin, and this past year, Tony Pollard had 11 approximate value. Keyshawn Nixon this year had 11 approximate value. They had the same value, but it is, again, a guy who touches the ball a lot and a guy who doesn't touch the ball that much. He's still that valuable. He's as valuable as a starting running back, and a good one at that. So I do believe that he is underrated. But who's your 4?
So my 4, I do have Nixon on this list. I was kind of shocked. I'm like, I had never really heard of him before, but he did make my list once I did some more research. My 4 is Devin Duvernay. I know he doesn't really make the list, but to me, he's got that explosiveness. And I had a lot of punt returners and kick returners higher because to me, they do provide some impact, but it was very few. Like I only have 3. Yeah, I only have 3 guys for punt returner, kick returner because they're stat special, and they're only those guys that can make a difference. Given just like the lacklusterness of it, because basically how it was in the past was what made you a good kick returner was just don't fumble the ball, like when you're catching it, or punt returner. As long as you catch the ball and don't touch it, you're doing your job, and that's basically what it was. The 3 guys that I have, they provided some value. Like they could actually be explosive. And to me, Devin Duvernay is that guy for the Ravens.
Yeah, I did not have Duvernay on my list. I'm a little bit worried about some of the injuries he's had over his career. Now he is definitely good, but I do remember last year a lot of people expected him to be much more impactful offensively, and then this past year as a kick returner, he only had 174 yards, a punt returner 290. A couple years before that, I definitely would have had him on the list, but I do think last year, injuries, he only played 13 games, and then also he had a down year. I don't have him on this list. I've actually mentioned all the kick returners or special teamers or long snappers. So everybody left is either a punter or a kicker for me. And like you said, I only have 3 returners. They're Darius Davis, Cordell Patterson, and Keyshawn Nixon. So I think I know the player that you have that I don't have. And there's a reason why. And so I hope you say his name because I have a reason why. But we'll go into my number 4. My number 4 is Brandon Aubrey. Aubrey was the best kicker or second best kicker in the league last year. Best kicker by percentage and by efficiency through a lot of things. But I still don't think he was the best kicker last year. And I have him as the 3rd best kicker this upcoming year. I think there's only 2 guys I really like above him, but he's so consistent. And I don't think that's going to change this upcoming year. He looks like he has ice in his veins. He can hit clutch kicks. He can hit long ones. And he really does help the Cowboys a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm very curious on. I'll just go to my 3 because I don't think I have the guy you're thinking about. But my 3 is Keyshawn Nixon.
Okay.
For all the reasons you said, and I was like, wow, he's really good, and I just hadn't.
There's been multiple games, Kevin, where we needed a long return or we need a big play, and he's the one that can get us a 75-yard return that maybe he doesn't score on, but he does impact a lot. And I think he's one of my favorite players on the Packers, especially because now he does play a lot on defense as well.
Yeah. So a lot of the reasons you said, now I just valued him a little bit higher because if you're making all pros and doing that as a punt returner, and to me, he deserved to be higher. But
he's a kick returner more than a punt returner.
Kick returner.
In his upcoming year, he's going to be even more important.
Yeah.
And he does do some punt returns, but he's not the main punt returner.
Yes, that's a good point. But yeah, a returner, I was like, he should be on this list.
Yeah.
So do you want to go into your 3?
Sure. My 3 is Jake Elliott. I think Jake Elliott is the best kicker in the NFC. Elliott, I think, is just slightly better than Aubrey. Not only does he have the experience, but he also is still making 94% of his kicks last year, 98% of his extra points. He was an all-pro second team, and he is very, very good. He can make long kicks, tough kicks, and he does hit them in the clutch consistently.
All right. So I almost had him on this list. I almost put there instead of Aubrey, but I didn't want to put too many kickers, punters on here because I want to give some love to the other guys. But he is a great kicker. So I'll let you go into your 2.
Okay. My 2 is AJ Cole, the 3rd. You mentioned him. It's not even close, Kevin. He is by far the best punter in the NFL. He's made 3 straight Pro Bowls. He's also made 2 of the last 3 All-Pro first teams. He just is the best punter, and it's not really remotely close. He's definitely impacted games consistently, and I don't think that changes this year.
Yeah. So my 2 is a guy you already mentioned, Cordell Patterson. he's the guy rare. Like, okay, he can take a kick return or punt return. I know he did have a down year, but to me, that may have just been like an effect of the system of just how it was. So he's a key part in that. But so that's my 2. And I'm pretty sure we have the same number 1 since we're including kickers.
Yeah, it's Justin Tucker. I don't think it's all that close.
He's by far the best kicker. Even in the history of the NFL, statistically, he's number 1 kicker just with his percentage. He is just a phenomenal kicker.
I completely agree. The one guy I wanted to mention that you didn't end up mentioning is Rashid Shaheed. Shaheed was All-Pro first team and Pro Bowler last year as a returner. He had a punt return touchdown. He really was a remarkable returner. But I think he's listed right now as wide receiver 2 on the Saints. And I don't think a wide receiver 2 impacts enough on special teams. I don't think he's going to be doing or be required to do as much on special teams this year because you don't want your second string wide receiver getting hurt on return. So I think that I left him off this list, not because of his talent, but because of his opportunities next year. I don't think he's going to be doing many special teams things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought you thought I was going to have, Kevontae Turpin, who to me, he's not a top 10 guy. There's something about him where I just don't really like how he returns kicks. Sometimes he'll miss some holes, but yeah, overall, a good list. And I'm glad we could agree on Justin Tucker because he's just a phenomenal player in general. But any final thoughts?
No, I'm excited for this upcoming year. I think special teams will be a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it, and I'm curious what happens to our top 10 list next year. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.